Hello, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for your ears. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2012 film, John Dies at the End. One of those movies was on streaming services and I never got around to watching it. It's been on my wish list forever. I think it was in my Amazon wish list forever. And I was placing an order with HamiltonBook.com, that site where I found movies and books for incredibly cheap. And it was incredibly cheap, so I threw it in an order. It's been sitting on my shelf for over a month, maybe two, and I finally pulled it out this weekend. Decided I would finally give it a shot. From the director of Phantasm and Bubba Hotep, John Dies at the End. If you like Phantasm or Bubba Hotep, then run, don't walk. This is probably Don Coscarelli's best movie. Really. Yeah, that'd be the short version. If you like those kind of movies, this is a great one. For everybody else, this will be a bit of a hard sell. You kind of have to suspend disbelief, kind of go with it for a while until you really realize what's going on. There's a narration, doesn't really help. Maybe that's the way, because the way it was implemented. The movie stars Chase Williamson, Rob Mays, Clancy Brown, Paul Giamatti, and a few other character actors you've seen in other things. It got pretty decent reviews. It's sitting at like 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that a whole bunch of people saw it. It had a budget of just $1 million. Paul Giamatti is actually one of the producers. Really wanted to do this movie. Didn't know that it was based on a book or read the book until after. I understand the book's crazier. I haven't read the book either. Will now, though. Don Coscarelli in Phantasm, I remember as a kid when I watched it recently, he's got great ideas that he can't always 100% get across. I get it. He's almost there. Sometimes he doesn't have the budget or the special effects aren't possible yet, or a lot of that with Phantasm. It was dealing with other dimensions and other beings from other worlds. It really wasn't aliens and it wasn't supernatural. It was other dimensions and really sci-fi kind of stuff. And Bubba Hotep, a good movie. I really enjoy that flick. I have a copy on DVD. I don't think I have a Blu-ray copy of it, but that's an interesting flick if you haven't seen it. But again, it's a movie chock full of ideas that doesn't come 100% home for me. Movies like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness are this level of crazy, and they're a bit more coherent. The images that come across are exactly, I think, what Sam Raimi wants to show you, and he's good at showing them to you so that you understand. I think Don Coscarelli is also full of gazillions of ideas, and a lot of them make it into the movie, but they're thrown at you so fast and sometimes not explained so well. It's probably going to be the second or third time watching it that you're really going to get all this stuff. Now, by the end of this film, I was totally in tune with what the story and where it was going and what was happening. But for the first part of it, it was kind of like being dropped into one of those animes where all of a sudden stuff is happening and you don't really know why. It opens up with our main character cutting someone's head off and then kind of explaining how things got started. I won't get into too many spoilers because not that many people saw this movie. I mentioned to a friend of mine. He was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Watching this." He goes, "I've never heard of that movie." Like I said, it's been on my wish list for a long time. It was on my radar. I had either read a good review or maybe it's just because I follow Don Coscarelli. I had heard about this movie. From the maker of Bubba Hotep and Phantasm, it was on my list. But I don't know. Maybe it was the name. I don't know why. I just never got around to seeing it. Maybe because... well, I like Phantasm of Bubba Hotep, but they're not my favorite movies of all time. I don't rewatch them on a yearly basis or anything. I've seen each once or twice, and that's about it. But this one, I'm going to add to a repertoire of movies that I'll pull out, maybe not yearly, but it was interesting enough. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of ideas here. Does John really die at the end? You're going to have to watch it and find out. That's a hard question even when I have finished the movie and watched some of the extras. Don Coscarelli is a treasure. He is a John Carpenter. He is, a Sam Raimi. he is one of those level of directors who just hasn't gotten to that level of popularity. But he's got interesting visions and interesting ideas, and he implements them in interesting ways, and his movies are never boring. Even as weird as the Phantasm movies got, all the ones that he directed, well, didn't he direct all of them? Anyway, should do a little more research. I just sat down. I really liked this movie. I liked how it ends. I think I see a lot of things that he tried in Phantasm, a little bit of Bubba Hotep, but a lot more Phantasm. Things he tried, but he's doing differently here. The whole other dimension thing. I think he does a little bit better in this movie. I think this is probably his best movie of the three that I've mentioned. I don't know that I've seen anything else he's directed. I know he's written a lot of things, but I have to read the book now. This is a really interesting story. So Paul Giamatti is asked in an interview with Fangoria, how would he describe the movie? And he gives a different description than I would give it. But basically, through casual drug use, two guys are called upon to save the universe. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what it's about. You just kind of have to go with it. And if you like movies like that, then you'll really like this movie because it's not like anything else out there. It's not like anything you've seen. The movie's 10 years old now. It should have a bigger cult following. I found it interesting on a level of, almost everything, everywhere, all at once. It's really kind of a game changer for $1 million movie. It has some very interesting ideas. The performances are all pretty good. Some people are better than others. I like Clancy Brown's cheeky character. I think he did a really great job. Paul Giamatti does a good job. The main characters are good. It deserves a bigger audience, but again, it's one hard to recommend to my friends. You have to be in the mood for it. It's one of those kind of movies. But I think Pulp Fiction is one of those kind of movies. You have to be in the mood to watch Pulp Fiction. It's not just there's a new 4K version coming out of that in Reservoir Dogs, and I've watched a few reviews already, and people are like, it looks a lot better than you think. They've really done a great job remastering these movies. But, as they're two of Tarantino's best, they're also not movies that I watch all the time because, well, they're just kind of dark and weird, but I love them. I'm not saying that this is on the level of a Tarantino film. It's not, but for $1 million movie, it's chock full of more ideas than they could pull off in $1 million movie. And I think the special effects, they do a lot of practical gore effects. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, it is rated R. It is rated R for bloody violence and gore, nudity, language, and drug content. The most recent movie I've seen that this would be similar to is Everything Everywhere All at Once. It really is on that level of kooky craziness. And it has a heart, and it's Don Coscarelli through and through for sure. So John dies at the end. Should you see it? If you like a movie that, you're just going to have to go with it until you figure out what's going on. And even then, you might have to watch the movie a second time. I found it funny in places. I found it exciting. I found the gore really well done, surprising in places. I guess it's a horror movie. It's not really a comedy. It's kind of funny. Humor, black comedy, I guess. That Don Coscarelli, Bubba Hotep, Phantasm kind of weird comedy. It's his universe. It's his vision. So if you're a Coscarelli fan, you've probably already seen this movie, and I'm preaching to the choir. But if you remember Phantasm and you've always heard about Bubba Hotep, I think John Dies at the End is a good way to jump into Coscarelli stuff because it's arguably more mainstream than those other two, kind of. It's a strange flick, but I enjoyed it. John Dies at the End. It's available at Hamilton Book, incredibly cheap. I think it's available on Amazon pretty cheap, too. It was on Netflix for a while. It was on Amazon Prime for a while. I haven't tried to stream it lately, but the Blu-ray is still available. Never got a 4K release. Don't know that it needs a 4K release to look fine. It's got a nice selection of extras, a nice DTS HD 5.1 surround sound mix. The film looks very good in 1080p. All in all, yeah, it was worth the $2.95 or whatever I paid for it. Great little flick, something I'll come back to. John Dies at the End, a Don Coscarelli film from 10 years ago, and definitely worth a watch if you're into eclectic horror, comedy, trans-dimensional weird stories. They mention a little Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with David Lynch. That's not too far off the mark either. Definitely Don Coscarelli, though. Feels like a Coscarelli film. But his best, I think. I'm Scott Hamilton. I'm ROCKFILE. My links are below. Big things coming. So good. Thank you for listening. Have a spectacular day.